Grow.
Reach.
Inspire.
And transform. NASM Optima 2021 Virtual Conference.
Our biggest and best Optima yet.
3 full days of learning.
More than 100 virtual sessions.
Inspiring speakers you can't miss.
Challenging workouts to master your skills.
Nutrition and lifestyle facts.
The best community network.
And for the first time ever, with free full online access.
At Optima 2021.
Find out more and register today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Master Instructor Roundtable. I'm Regional Master Instructor Marty Miller, here with fellow Regional Master Instructor and dear friend, Miss Wendy Batts. How's it going today there, Wendy?
I am good, Marty. How are you?
Awesome. So excited to be here every Thursday. So today we're going to jump into a new topic that we haven't covered before, and I think sometimes gets overlooked on how it really does correlate with everything we do, from programming, from our assessments, etc. We're going to cover subjective information.
Yes, and I believe that this is probably one of the most important things to do when you meet your client is talk to them, find out what their goals are. Why did they walk in the door? The more information you can gather, the better your sessions are going to be, better your programming is going to be. And then, of course, when you put that together with all the other information that you gathered, it is only a win-win for you both.
Wendy, so you're saying it's not all about me as the personal trainer?
Not today, but it always depends on the day, but it should always be about the client. And
absolutely.
So, yes. And so if we look at what we're going to talk about, I think, Marty and I pretty much just told you, we are literally going to go over the differences of assessments. We're going to talk a little bit between the difference of objective assessments versus subjective, which is the main focus of our webinar today. Why is that important? I think we pretty much already nailed that in the 2 seconds that we even started this sucker. And then why it's important to ask questions. And as always, if you're not assessing, you're guessing. So you must reassess every time you can, especially with the subjective portion. However, every 4 to 6 weeks, you want to reevaluate everything in its entirety just to make sure that you're on track helping those clients reach specific goals.
Absolutely. I love the outline.
Well, here we
You
go.
did put it together. Exactly. So, and I think, Wendy, before we even get into the documents and the sheets, what I would tell every personal trainer, and to me, it doesn't matter if you're new to this or if you've been doing this for 5 years or 25 years, let's not take for granted that first interaction with your potential client or your client. And sometimes I know that happens earlier where you talk to them and, okay, Friday, I'm going to meet you and we're going to go through everything. But just how prepared you are, how organized you are, how calm you are, how it's not like, oh, let me grab my clipboard and grab some documents. And it just sets the tone for professionalism right off the bat. And I'm sure we'll sprinkle this in throughout today's topic and webinar, is that a lot of people either don't know they're going to be formally screened, including subjective and objective information. And some people really have a fear of that first session anyways. So just by being calm, being prepared, knowing who's coming in and having everything lined up, just being able to greet them properly and starting this process, sometimes that is the biggest impact to the relationship right there.
I 100% agree with that. And I have actually had a client tell me the first time they met me, they were almost scared of me before they even saw me. And it was mainly because somebody else had scheduled the appointment. They said, you're going to be with this trainer. You're going to love her. She's full of energy. She's going to help you reach your goals. She's going to dig deep into what it is that, brought you into our doors, and you're going to love it. However, in this person's, mind, she was thinking, I am going to try to kill her. I'm going to see how hard I can push her to where she's going to be sore, miserable, and can't walk. She didn't know what I look like. And that is one of the reasons we wanted to do this, because we want to really help these people feel comfortable when they walk in the door. And they knew that it was going to get personal. And so to your point, Marty, being prepared, yes, having the documents and all that, but I'm going to even take it a step further. If you know that you have a brand new client and they don't know anything about you. They don't know what they look like or what you look like. They don't really know anything other than they have this meeting with you to determine whether they want to really, buy sessions and commit to training. If you meet them at the door and you are super excited to be there and you're like, my name is so-and-so, I'm so glad that you came in today. We're going to take you to a private room so I can get to know you a little bit better. Again, all about energy, all about who you are, all about why, like you're just reinforcing some of their fears without them even telling you that they are fears, which on a rapport building standpoint, they are going to love you from just the start.
Yeah. And Wendy, we always just go into tangents, and I studied this for my doctorate, but what I really wanted to know was why people don't exercise, because clearly, when I was going to go do my research, I was like, if no research ever came out again of the benefit of exercise, I think we've kind of covered it. Like, I'm glad that people keep looking at why this, why that, but we know it works. So it made me kind of shift focus, like, why do so many people not? And there's 3 different personality types, where I'm only going to talk about one. There's one that's called impersonal, and that is a large majority of people who don't ever exercise or try it once and they stop. And their personality, their mindset is, I'm doomed to fail. It's going to hurt. It's going to be horrible. Everybody else is fit. Everyone's going to be looking at me. So imagine that at least 33% of the people walking in the door that you really don't know yet could fall into that category or more. And sometimes you get one chance. And I've always said my mom's best first session would have been sitting down, filling out the paperwork, getting to know me, laughing a little bit, and walking out, never even exercising. So this is where I think it's so important to, be a professional and understand that there's a good chance that people coming in have some anxiety. And now here we sit trying to find out what's wrong with them. So we want to make this a fun but professional experience. And I really do think that this absolutely sets the stage for you being an incredibly successful personal trainer, especially for those that are kind of waiting for an out.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to say that if you're kind of new to training and you're trying to build your business, offering a free assessment isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. I did that. I would have people come in because I wanted to help them get on track. Like you said, get them in the doors, whether they were training with me or not. But if they don't really know what they don't know, and they don't know where to start, they don't know how to use the equipment, they don't know who they can turn to for questions, then, it's like you said, it's a fail from the start. But if you can sit down and you show that you're personable, they feel comfortable with you, they like you, you're asking the right questions, you're really trying to help them, get on board, then you're going to help this client be successful. And 90% of the time, never 100%, but 90% of the time, you're going to notice that they're going to want to buy sessions from you. And then at that point, once you get them in the door and once you start to learn more about them and you're asking about their family, you're asking how they're feeling, and they're starting to see results, then you can't get rid of them. You have clients for a lifetime if you actually take that information that we're going to talk about moving forward and really, embrace it and remember it. I mean, there's nothing worse than saying, what was your husband's name again? Or wait, you said you had a son, right? So you want to kind of take notes as they're talking, because again, the more, even whether don't even buy sessions, when they come in the door, remember their name, remember who they were, and ask how their family is. Because when they do want sessions, they're going to remember you over everybody else because you were their support system from the start.
Absolutely. And, I think that I've had a ton of clients in my clubs. I joke around, I call it the Al Goldberg effect. I gave him some free information and would give him free information all the time. And I couldn't tell you how many people came and said, Al told me to come see you. Al told me to come see you. Right. So he was my best referral source without a doubt. And I never probably ever charged him for a personal training session. So it's all about the rapport, making people feel special. So Wendy, if you want to kick off our PAR-Q Plus, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah. So, let's take a step back and talk about what subjective assessments are, because if you don't really understand the definition, we're really not going to be doing you any good today. And so subjective assessments, and we're going to talk about the differences between objective and subjective. But objective assessments are the first thing that you're doing with your client. You are talking to them. You are asking specific questions. Ask open-ended questions. Why did you come in the door today? Why did you decide that today was the day you wanted to hire a personal trainer? And then at that point, the more that you get them to open up, then it is going to help them, really think about why they're there. But then also too, there's nothing worse than sitting down saying, hi, my name's Wendy. I'm going to maybe be your trainer. Let's do some assessments. First thing, I want you to fill out this paperwork and then let me know when you're done. So impersonal, as you said, it like, they're like, well, great. I could have just filled out this paperwork on my own. I mean, why are they there? So yes, there's something called the PAR-Q Plus. It's new in our CPT 7. So it's our newest PAR-Q. And the reason we say it's newer is there are more questions that is going to provide you with even more detail about their medications, make sure that they've got the right clearance to work out. So therefore it's safe for you as the trainer, as well as the client. And if there are any red flags, this PAR-Q Plus will help you identify them from the start. So then when you're asking more detailed questions and going over this PAR-Q, you're going to be able to determine whether you need to refer out or whether it's something that you can continue on. However, you need to take precaution when designing these programs, because there is something that, is a little abnormal maybe from, the typical healthy client that may walk in. And so I think it's important to discuss their medication. It's, the more questions that you can ask, the better. And even if you're not familiar with, someone's on a blood thinner, you're not familiar with what you need to know about that, take notes, because then you can do your research later if they do, decide to sign up with you or you're going to start working with them, because that's important to know. Someone on blood thinners, somebody that may have some issues with, like heart issues, then you also want to think, okay, maybe putting them in a prone position and immediately having them stand down or, stand up and then getting back in prone and standing up. That might not be super beneficial because it could make them pass out. It could make them, their heart rate go crazy. So just really take the time and go over as much information in detail as you can. And it's only going to serve you better and them as well.
No, those are great points. And I think that, you've heard me say this, there's the art and the science of training. Science is actually a little bit easier to teach because, right, if the knees go in, the feet go out, if someone's on this medication, those are things that you can learn. But the art of the training is how do you put this all together and focus on the person that's in front of you and make it come to life for them. So I'm going to go back to a very important point you talked about, Wendy, with those open-ended questions. So again, being prepared and being a good listener. Don't just ask questions and check the boxes and go. So what I've seen a lot of times is someone will say, why'd you come in today? So building off, Wendy, what you said, like, well, I want to get in shape. Okay, great. And then it's like, well, let's pause there. Well, if Wendy was my client, I'd be like, well, Wendy, can you define what I want to get in shape means to you? Right? Because here I am as a trainer. She said she wants to get in shape. I go, great. And now we could be having two complete different versions and visions of what that's going to be 4 to 6 weeks from now. And ironically, a lot of the times, if they're somebody newer to fitness, they're going to end up, after you ask 2 or 3 more follow-up open-ended questions, it's not what they thought it even was. You could say, well, can you define what that looks like to me? Well, I'd like to lose 15 pounds. Okay, when would you like to lose that 15 pounds by? Well, by such and such. Well, I have a wedding that I have to attend, right? So it's like, oh, you want to look good in your dress. And at the end, they're like, yeah, but their initial goal wasn't what the end goal was. So that's where being a good listener, having that ability to ask a lot of open-ended questions and really make it about them, then you really can get to some kind of level of mutual understanding. And then you can repeat that back to them so they know that you're on the same page with them as well.
So if I say I want to look like G.I. Jane, you're going to know exactly what I want to look like, right?
Demi Moore, Navy SEAL, first woman. Like I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. I remember that movie. She was ripped.
She was ripped. And so,
but okay, going back to open-ended questions. So Wendy, I hear you want to look like G.I. Jane. Does that include the shaved head?
Well, you know what? It'd make my life a lot easier. So maybe I don't know.
I gotta do what I said, right? I want to make sure we're on the common ground there, because I know I can get you the shaved head. That part's the easy part.
Yes.
But I think you're capable. I
probably could do that too. Probably not today, but hey, you never know. Who knows what the future holds? And I mean, at the end of the day, you said this, and I'm going to reiterate it. When I had someone literally tell me that they wanted to lose, like you said, they wanted to lose 15 to 20 pounds. Their reason was for a wedding. And I think I've mentioned this in a previous webinar. And it's because it's true. I had a client say that they wanted to do this. And however, the wedding was in a month and a half. They were not invited to this wedding. They were going as a +2. So they were the +2 for someone that was invited, and they needed to look amazing in their dress, and they wanted to look a specific way. And so my question to them when they said 15 to 20 pounds, it wasn't that they wanted to look amazing. They thought if they lost that, it would make them look amazing. And so I asked them, why those specific numbers? Is there going to be a scale at the door to where they had to weigh you to see if you weighed a certain amount of weight before they walked in? And if you didn't hit that number, you weren't allowed in the door. And so, trying to make it fun, enjoyable. And they're like, no. And it ended up being, she was attending her ex-boyfriend's wedding. Exactly. And she wanted to look incredible. So therefore, maybe he would reconsider saying, I do. I don't really know. That wasn't my thing. But, I got her looking amazing. So I hit my goal. She hit her goal, and everyone had a great time. The wedding did take place. So I don't know what her end goal was there, but she attended that wedding and she looked mighty fine, I might add.
I'm telling you, that's where I can't tell you how many times the weight loss is for an event. And I've always said the same thing. Like, I don't get weighed when I go to these events. Men just buy bigger suits or whatever. And she goes, Marty, what you don't understand is pictures last forever. I'm like, okay, I get it. So that was the other part to it that I heard is pictures last forever. So I'm like, yes. Okay, fair enough.
But it brings us back to our slide. And yes,
there's a purpose we're here.
There is yes, I guess we could just talk all day about our clients. However, asking the questions, but guys, the PAR Q it is very, very important, because if there is something that is check marked on there that does give you some, there's some doubts, then you can always ask if you can talk to their physician, their physical therapist, whomever may give you the best kind of insight on whatever it is that you're finding out that maybe you're not comfortable with. And so just spend some time going through this, just making sure you feel comfortable and that you feel clear. And like I said, where you see discuss medications, make notes of those just in case. When they're talking about it, if you're not sure what a beta blocker is, or you're not sure about certain things, how would that affect them with physical activity, then just do a little bit of research before they come in, especially if they say, yep, you are the trainer of my choice.
Absolutely.
So moving forward. Thanks, man.
So now we're going to move into objective assessment. So it's just the polar opposite. These are things that the numbers are the numbers. Wendy, we had a great CES workshop this weekend, and I remember a quote by you that I'll always remember is, if you didn't pass, it's a big fat fail. Like, these are things that are pass, fail. That's Wendy's terms, I'm just saying. But range of motion, performance assessment, mobility, these are not opinion based. These are just, you do the measurement and that's your objective assessment. And then obviously you can use those objective assessments to then correlate back and try to create a story on how, with this objective information, you're going to help them with their subjective goals. And you'll see there, the last bullet point, very measurable data used to reassess programming and to see if you're on track or making progress.
Yes. And for me, when we talk about objective assessments, the reason we threw this in is because, like you said, Marty, you're getting the numbers. And then when you reassess, you're looking at your objective data to see if it's gotten better or worse. And again, like you said, if it's worse, then you need to sit down, reevaluate what's going on. But I think it's also important because the subjective information and the objective information, it should blend together. So if somebody comes in and they say that they have discomfort in their lower back, and then you do an overhead squat and you notice that their feet turn out, their knees cave in, and they have a big anterior tilt, so a big arch in their lower back, then when you're going through this, you can actually explain, well, based on what you're feeling, meaning what they told you, because the subjective may be emotional or how they're feeling because they're telling you about it, then it may coincide with what you're finding in the movement, in the numbers, and the data that you're gathering. So then you can help put it together for them. Like, as we clean up getting your feet back into proper alignment, and we work on good alignment of the knees, and we get your hips to fire, your glutes to fire correctly, and realign your hips, it's going to take the compression off the lumbar spine, which is probably causing you the discomfort. And this is going to begin by doing some foam rolling and some stretching, and then working on, activating the right muscles. So therefore that discomfort goes away. You start moving better, feeling better, performing better. and bam,
Yep.
just mic drop. You've actually given them an understanding of why they're feeling that way by showing you understand the objective data, and then it brings it back back into play. But if you didn't find any of that information out during the initial consultation or subjective portion of it, it's really hard to get the buy-in, because they don't know what this objective stuff means. You're taking a tape and you're putting it around their arms and their neck and their chest and their hips. I mean, it's not comfortable. They just met you and you've got your hands on them trying to use the measuring tape for circumference measurements. Now you're having them take off their shoes and making them squat, and maybe they don't feel comfortable squatting, and then maybe doing some mobility things, and like you said, it's a pass or fail. And then you're like, oh, failed that, failed that, failed that. That makes them feel really comfortable and confident in what they're doing. So again, don't tell them that they failed. Just say, great, let's move on. So just realize that this part of it, if you can blend in the subjective component, it really will help you build your business and sell a session without even worrying about the cost. They just want to feel better or look better.
Yeah, absolutely. And then before I even throw some information there, for those of you that just joined in this week, we are going over subjective information today and just talking about the importance of how you start off that session, start off that relationship, gathering rapport, building tools through the subjective information, and then using that as your anchor for everything you do going forward. And Wendy, kind of to build off of everything you just said there so eloquently, is you can then use the subjective information that they gave you after you grab that objective, and then you can come back and say, hey, you told me this is where you want to be. You told me this was your goal. Here's what I'm seeing with my measurables. This is why I have to have you foam roll, even though you're not burning a ton of calories when you're doing it, because I'm going to make you move better. And if I make you move better, you can move more frequently. If you move more frequently, then we can get you to lose that 15 to 20 pounds. So it's that glue that kind of keeps everything together.
Yes. And then when they tell you that they went and partied it up that weekend, you've got more ammo. Like, well, you know what?
Right.
It's your dress, your wedding. So
it wasn't in the plan.
Yes. You need to stick with this program if you want to be successful. So very good point, Marty. But always bring it back around, because the more you can do that, the more they have to take ownership of what they're putting in their mouth and doing on their own. So, but very good points. So then let's move on. And then we're going to talk about, so Marty, if I said to you, why is this important? What is the number one reason you're going to probably say?
The biggest thing, it's very, very important to build rapport. That is crucial. But at the same time, and even more important from the liability standpoint, and really understanding whether this client is ready to start, and that is part of rapport, and they'll come back to help you out, is scope of practice. Is you need to know is no matter what they tell you, when I get to the bottom of this PAR-Q, have I felt comfortable enough that they are now truly ready to start an integrated training program with me? And again, if you're following the model, more than likely you're starting them with their assessment and then either corrective or stabilization. So they don't need to be perfectly healthy as far as never had issues, but you need to kind of screen them to know that they're currently ready to start physical activity. And even if they are doing physical activity, you can ask, does your doctor know you're doing physical activity? These are questions you can ask. And at the end of the day, the final question I've always asked when a box gets checked and or at the bottom is, have you spoken to your physician that you want to start an exercise program, and have they cleared you medically? That is all. We are always going to have that conversation prior to me saying, well, let's go. And, I've had some personal trainers ask me, well, I'm like, no, there's no wells. This is what your job is to screen people to understand if they're ready. And if they're not, that's quite okay. They'll come back to you. You're doing them a favor. And that is a huge part of the rapport building, that the person understands you have that much care and concern, that if you had to say, you know what, I really think that we need to speak to your physician, or I need to get something in writing, and then we're ready to go. So there's a lot of ways we can talk about the different circumstances. We're not really here to do that. It's more the process. But there will be occasionally some clients that you need to say, you know what, let's take the next step and make sure you get medical clearance from your physician.
Yes, super important, because remember, if they go down on your shift, you could be held 100% liable. And if you say, well, hey, I've gotten clearance, this is what we were doing, you documented everything, because you should have all your sessions documented, they can come back and say, oh, wait, you really weren't responsible for that. That might have been so-and-so that happened, prior to coming in or whatever. So just remember, you just save yourself, have insurance, but then also, like you said, if there's any doubt, refer out. Always, always, always.
And you know what? I'm thinking of a story now that if I can give some people advice, we're talking about the very beginning. You need to have conversation with your clients each and every time they come in. Mm-hmm. And there was a gentleman who came in and I knew he was ready to go. We trained for 4 to 6 weeks. I knew what his cardiovascular capabilities were. And we're having a conversation. I was asking, how you feeling? How are things going? And anything, just the general conversation as the session begins. He goes, yeah, it was kind of weird. I was walking the other day and he goes, maybe I just didn't sleep well. I was a little short of breath more than I thought. And I said, well, were you doing like a 20, 30, 40-minute walk? Again, that follow-up question. And he's like, nah, it's like, I just, kind of walked, maybe for 30 seconds. I said, whoa, you've been doing 30-minute cardio sessions. You walk for 30 seconds and you're short and out of breath. Went back through his medical history. Asked him, I said, Mr. So-and-so, I said, that's not normal. I said, I'm going to encourage you to call your physician. But if you ever experience that again, you are absolutely calling your physician or 911. That is not normal. Next day, I get a text message. He goes, can't make the session. I'm in the hospital. We prevented a cardiac situation because his body was trying to talk to him. But I knew that was so abnormal that I didn't feel comfortable. And I said, here's what I would do. Here's what you have to do. This is not. So sometimes you pick that up at the very beginning, but you could be training someone for 3 years and then that happens. And that's where you have to pause and say, wait a minute. Let's slow this thing down. Let me run this through my filter of, does this make sense for this client? Especially when you're talking about cardiovascular. If someone's got a little sore ankle, things like that, probably not going to be as risky. But this is that filter you have to go through of, let me think about this. Is this making sense? And what's the harm of me referring them out?
Well, and I had a similar story, and I think I've actually shared this before, but it is so important. And just to reiterate that particular comment of talking to your clients every day and always doing subjective kind of checkups, if you will, because the same thing, we were doing an exercise such as a bridge, and this woman, when she would get up, she would get really, really dizzy. And she would say she needed a minute from a floor bridge. It wasn't that I was having her do something crazy. And her PAR-Q, everything turned out great when we did her initial assessments. And we were probably 3 weeks in. And I saw her 3 times a week. And I am one, which you guys know, I'm all about tube walking, all about bridging and everything after we do the proper flexibility techniques. And then the next thing you know is I just told her, I'm like, why don't you just get this checked out? Because it just, with you feeling dizzy, I don't want you to be on a piece of equipment, or I don't want to put you on a treadmill or something like that. And all of a sudden you have a dizzy spell. It just doesn't seem normal. She went in for a checkup and got in the next morning, and she had a brain aneurysm, and they immediately went in, they did surgery, and she's like, you saved my life. And so, that's rewarding within itself. And that was a client that I had forever because I was concerned about her. I wanted her to check on herself, but there were so many people, and oftentimes you're going to get the, oh, I'm fine. This happens every once in a while, and they're going to blow it off. But it's important for you as a trainer to really talk to your client and make sure that they go and do what you're asking them to do, because you're just there to help them. And you just, and you saying doing a safety check, it's just in your best interest.
Yep. Awesome stuff.
Yep. But then also too, the bottom points I also want to bring up to people, because they don't always talk about this in the beginning. And to me, I think it's very, very important. When you're sitting down and you're talking to your clients and, they're telling you their goals, they're telling you about their health history, you're kind of building that rapport and asking questions. I think once they say that they want to lose 15 or 20 pounds, or they want to gain muscle, whatever it is, then you need to ask the follow-up questions, such as, and people find these hard as a trainer, and they shouldn't be, like, well, how often can you commit to your program? How often do you want to come in and see me, so therefore we can really hit these goals? And if they say, well, I don't really know, just say, and then you have to be able to answer, come up with something like, in order for you to hit your goals, I see you coming in 2 to 3 times a week. However, you're going to have to do this, and this on your own. Can you commit to that? You need a verbal yes. But then you also need to let them know, okay, once they decide that they're going to train with you, then say, this is my cancellation policy, and then have them sign something, have them acknowledge your cancellation policy. Because if you constantly let someone reschedule. Oh, I can't make it today. Oh, something came up with my kid or whatever. It's up to you to say, you know what, I'm going to let this one, slide. This one's on me. I get it. Things happen. However, in the future, just realize my 24-hour cancellation policy, I'm going to have to charge you because unfortunately I couldn't fill that session. And so I think, or whatever policy you have. Again, there's going to be times that they can't come in because something bad happened, and it's really up to us to determine, whether we're going to charge them or not. I mean, most of you guys have hearts. You probably wouldn't charge them if it was something like their kid fell at school and broke an arm and they have to go to the ER. Obviously, that's kind of important that they're in the hospital with their child. However, something came up at work. I really have to be in this meeting. You know what? Well, I have to work too. People have to work, and you are a person that builds your business on hourly, people coming in and paying for that session, because, we have to eat too.
No, I agree. I think the key thing is setting the expectations early is so much easier than after the fact.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Yes. So moving on, on that positive note.
Yep. Got to talk about it though. So here we'll just jump into the SMART goals. What's their why? We've already covered this at length, with given the stories of, oh, this is really the why. So, SMART goals, obviously you guys have seen these before, they're, you got to be able to, subjective, measurable, what's the A? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Attainable.
Yep. Specific, measurable,
measurable, attainable,
realistic, and timely.
Time. Yes. So those are, I got to refresh on that. So those are key. So specific, we talked about that as like, do you really want to lose 15 pounds or do you want to look amazing in that wedding dress? And once they understand their why, that's probably more important than maybe sometimes even you understanding their why. Because if we get them fit, a lot of good things are going to happen. But I like to understand their why so I can anchor back to it. But the key point is, did they even understand why they walked in the gym?
Mm-hmm. And I think the realistic part of that is a big one, realistic in time, because if somebody says, I want to lose 20 pounds in 1 month, that's not realistic. I mean, we're not the biggest loser here. We're not going to put you on a 24-hour, I'm watching your every move. I'm making sure that you're eating this, that, and the other. You're, calorie counting, and you're doing this type of cardio. But you have to be honest with your client, because you saying, you know what, that 20 pounds, if that's super important to you, yes. But you know what, a pound per week, 1 to 2 pounds per week, even 3 pounds, you're pushing it. But that's usually something that is attainable. And so, but you also have to be very committed into what you're doing in order to hit these goals. Because if they don't hit that and you tell them, oh, 20 pounds, piece of cake, they lose 2 or 3 pounds, then they're going to come back and you said that I was going to be able to do this. And so therefore it does not look good from you. And, you also want to make sure that they're doing lifestyle changes and not just doing something for that wedding, that they really are going to commit to their health. And I think that's one thing about our jobs sometimes that people don't understand. We're here to help them make changes of life, not just when they walk in the door for that 1 hour, because they have 23 hours in the rest of their day. And, however many other hours in the week that they're not with you. And it's just important to make sure that you're very, very specific with them. And then also about their movement patterns. Somebody wants to gain muscle mass and they have a ton of compensations, and that it takes the body approximately 4 to 6 weeks to make some changes, then you should say it's going to take about 3 or 4 months before you're going to start to notice more size, because I got to get you moving better. I've got to make sure I'm reducing the chances of injury and pain and discomfort. And I want to make sure that when we're building this muscle, that we're using the right muscles and we're making sure the stabilizers can handle that load. If not, we're going to have problems at the tendon. We could increase our chances of injury, and it's not worth it. So I think that's a big one. And then also incorporating things that they enjoy. That's a big one. When you're sitting down, ask them, well, what do they do? What do you like in the gym? And people are like, I don't know, the smoothies. I'm like, okay, good to know. But a lot of times people don't know. They don't know anything about the gym. That's why they're there. So that's good information for you to know. They are not familiar at all with the gym. So you're going to have to be very clear with your cueing, your demoing, and all that information. Are they currently active? Do they do things outside? Do they like to run, play tennis, play golf? Like, what do they like to do? So therefore you can think about what they do for fun and then program the opposite muscles sometimes because of repetitive use? And then do they currently do cardio? If they're running every single day, what happens if you say, let's go for a swim? Or, you know what, why don't you meet me at the, and let's do a bike ride together? So whatever it is, and just throw in some different stuff to burn more calories, but then also just don't, if you know that they're constantly going to run, then maybe having them do sprints and constantly running in the middle of their program to increase their metabolic blast or, increase the cardio expenditure, maybe, or caloric expenditure. Maybe that's not the cardio you should choose. Maybe you should put them on a skill run and do something different. Maybe you put them on a rower, do something different. Maybe you do something different.
And the key thing is all those, you can still use the OPT model. We've done plenty of webinars on how you can get creative. So we're not saying forget the science. It's just meet them where they're at. And then eventually you be able to take them where you want them to go.
Yes. And then of course, know their fears. Why, do they have any? We had somebody I literally had someone tell me that they have fears of bars. Like meaning like the actual doing, that I was going to put them on lifting heavy loads on a chest press or doing, clings and hangs. And, she was a 47-year-old woman that she didn't like bars. She didn't want to touch them. And I'm like, perfect. Then we just won't use them. Not like I was going to put that in a program anyway, but good to know.
And then of course, final point is it's hard to out exercise a bad diet. So we have the certified nutrition coach that you guys can take if you want to add that to your repertoire, but there has to be a conversation at some point for the majority of people, whether they want to gain muscle mass, whether they want to lose body fat, whether they just want to live a healthier lifestyle. Obviously, nutrition is a huge component. So make sure you know your scope of practice, but that's why NASM did create the certified nutrition coach so you can add that to your skill set.
Yes. And if you guys are just joining us, Marty Miller and myself, Wendy Batts, are talking about subjective information and why it's important and why you need to make sure every single time a person walks into your door, you are building that rapport from the start, but then also finding out the most important information, which is all about their health history and then why they are there in the first place. So moving forward, if we go into the reassessment, imagine that every 4 to 6 weeks, you should reassess. As Marty said earlier, you should reassess the subjective component, meaning talking to your clients every single day. If someone did not sleep well, someone, ended up having something, emotional happen and they're just not in the right frame of mind, you may have to do a quick adjustment in your programming because at that point, that maybe lifting heavy or a power day or something like that may be, it wouldn't be beneficial for them that particular day. And then if they were in phase 5, you may bring them down for phase 1 that session. However, you want to sit down 4 to 6 weeks when you're looking at, again, you're going to reassess their objective component. You're going to do the overhead squat again. You're going to do all the measurable data, look at the numbers, make sure it's going in the right direction. But you also want to sit down and see if there's any changes in their goals, meaning maybe they've already attended that wedding and now what's next? What's in it? You need that information of what's really pushing them to the next, maybe now they want to run a half marathon. Maybe that's their, on their bucket list. They didn't think they could do it. They look amazing. They're starting to feel great. And maybe that's something they want to do. All good information for you to know, but reassess the subjective component as well. Reestablish those goals. And then say now, is there anything in the gym that you love? Like, what is your favorite thing? And then maybe look at the template that we have provided in the new CPT 7, and you can see that, there's the client choice. Start incorporating things that now they love, and therefore they're happy. They've got what, as Marty says, you're giving them what they want. However, you're also providing what they need. And then, too, also, that's a good time for you to do some self-reflection, meaning how are you with them? How are you on helping them commit to their goals? And then two, how is your programming? Because if you're still not hitting that, those numbers that you should be hitting up until that point, 4 to 6 weeks later, they're not advancing, they're not able to go into a different phase, or they're still having these same major compensations and they're not cleaning up. You need to ask yourself why. And so I think all of that information is super important.
Yeah, and I think just the only thing I can add to that is doing the reassessment. One, it gives you the ability to kind of maybe set another set of goals, but it really shows the improvement that you've been able to make with this client. So it's almost like a benchmark on how much they're really going to appreciate how far you've taken them.
And one thing we've seen on the Facebook page, I know Marty, you and I both have actually made comments. People are saying, well, I get my clients and they're standing on this scale and they're really mad. They're mad because they've only lost like 5 pounds and they wanted to lose 10, but they never took circumference measurements in the beginning.
Right.
And as you guys all know, people's weight is going to fluctuate throughout the month. It can fluctuate throughout the day. It depends on what they ate. It also depends on how much water. Yes. And muscle does not weigh more than fat. So please don't say that ever. However, you're going to notice that if you retake some of those circumference measurements, then maybe they are getting leaner and they're looking like they're smaller, but those numbers may not change. So having those circumference measurements and you being able to say, listen, you started at 35.7 and now you're down to 32. I don't know. I'm making this up in a certain area, then that's a huge, huge change. And that is something that they should celebrate. And I think at that point, that particular assessment, especially with somebody that's new to the gym and they don't know what to expect, that sometimes can really save your career, because then you've got some data that looks really good.
Absolutely.
All right.
Key takeaways: shocking. Assessments of all kinds are key. So we always talk about assessments. We tend to be focused on the movement assessments, but every part of the assessment process is key. And I think we went over many ways that you can use those to dig in deeper, to build rapport, to reassess, and to really find out, those SMART goals, and then tie that from the subjective to the objective, and then create the best plan for your client. And then obviously we have to focus on what the client wants and give them what they need. I think I've said that a few times before, right,
Just
Wendy?
a few, yes.
Rule number 2, ask important and personal information that's appropriate, set realistic goals, and then reassess constantly. So anything else, Wendy, for the key takeaways?
No, bring your personality into it, y'all. That will sell your session. Have them love you. Have them have fun with you. Laugh with them. Joke with them. They're scared to death when they meet a trainer, because again, they've seen The Biggest Loser. They've seen trainers yell at them. They've seen things on YouTube. And this is why we're different. We want to be there to support the client. We want to be there to help the client. And you can only help them by finding out their wants and their needs. And then, help them feel better, move better, perform better. It's a win-win.
Without a doubt. So Wendy, do you want to give people your contact information?
Absolutely. If you guys want to email me, you can find me or email me at wendy.bats@nasm.org, or you can find me on Instagram at wendy.bats13.
Excellent. And then my email is there, marty.miller@nasm.org. And Instagram is dr.martymiller72. And as a takeaway, first and foremost, thank you everyone for watching and attending. But check out NASM Optima 2021 in October. Go online. You'll see that it is actually free. It's amazing.
What?
So many, I know, right? I think over 100 sessions, and I get to do an interview of a really cool person, but I can't say yet, but I'm excited about that. So Wendy, I know you'll be a big part of Optima. We got some great stuff coming. So until next week, everybody, go check out Optima, and we look forward to seeing you again next Thursday.